Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. Today I'm finally going to get started with doing a full service on my 1995 Honda Acty Attack. Usually when I purchase a vehicle, it's pretty much immediate that I do a full service on it. This one I've had for like 8 months and I've kind of neglected it. I've just been busy with other stuff. But anyways, going to be replacing the timing belt on it, replacing all the fluids, spark plugs, a few other odds and ends that I've noticed need addressed on it. But yeah, with that, let's get right to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the valve cover. Obviously, it looks like some rodent has made a home in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just vacuum this out before I pull the valve cover so that nothing gets down into the engine. It looks like there's just a few things to get out of the way to get the valve cover off. This breather tube here, which, oh. All right, so that breather hose there did fight me a little bit, but got that off. Eventually just pulled the throttle cable out of this clip here, took the 3 spark plug tubes out. Now it just looks like we have a couple 10mm bolts and the valve cover should be off. Now I'm just going to try and break the seal on the valve cover, not necessarily take it all the way off right now, just so I don't get any dirt in there. But it has to be loose in order to get the timing cover off. So, pretty happy with that amount of room. So now I need to pull this engine mount out. So I have a jack supporting the oil pan and a jack stand in case that fails. And it's just a 17mm bolt here on the motor mount. Now I'm going to carefully lower the engine down onto jack stand. So next are these 15mm super rusty motor mount bracket bolts I need to get off, which mine I actually had to sand down to, or get the corrosion off of them to actually get loose. It would be nice if you could get a socket in here. These are, sorry, I said 50, these are actually 14. I got the wrong size. Hopefully I didn't round these off. So I apologize I stopped filming. I've been pretty frustrated with this motor mount bracket. I am starting to make some progress. I ended up just taking the mount off before trying to get the bracket off, what seems like it freed up a bunch of space, but everything's just been really difficult to get to and rusty. I think if you could get the engine lower, it probably would help, but I don't really have a safe, easy way to support it, so I'm kind of just working with what I got. I think I found the source of my idle vibration. This motor mount is absolutely shot, so I'm glad that I went ahead and ordered a new one. But yeah, anyways, I think I just have the one top bolt left, which I'm not actually sure how to even get to get onto it. And then there's the one bolt for the engine like hook that I need to get off in order to get that whole bracket out, but starting to make progress slowly but surely. So now I'm just going to remove the one bolt holding the alternator to the bracket, which is also the tensioner for the alternator. So when you remove this, the serpentine belt is going to come off, which is fine. Doesn't matter. Oh, come on. Alright. This looks like a spacer. Alright, now it looks like we're starting to make progress. Ideally, I should be able to pull the alternator down and now get this belt off, but so it looks like this cover has to come off first. So I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and put the engine at top dead center now. I'm actually like really close, but just slightly off. And unfortunately, you have to rotate the engine counterclockwise, so I have to go all the way around again to get back at top dead center. And then I'll loosen this bolt for the alternator, and I should be able to push the alternator down and get the belt off. Then I'm gonna remove these 10 millimeters for the pulley for the alternator belt, and then I'm hoping just remove the 10 millimeters for the cover and should be able to get the bottom timing cover off and then the top one afterwards. Okay. So I don't know if that shows up on camera, but if you look at it straight on, it's right at top dead center. This mark here lines up with that mark there. If it's not perfect right now, it doesn't matter. There is another one. Once you remove this pulley on the actual harmonic balancer, there is a second timing mark there. So that's that. Yeah, I guess I'll work on that alternator or pulley. So after removing the 3 bolts for the oil dipstick tube, I was able to just rotate it, which I saw in a video, but I was a little bit skeptical. But it appears it works and it's not leaking, so that's good. I didn't drain the oil, so. All right, so I finally got the timing cover off. Every video I watched online said that that was a nightmare, and that is absolutely true. I mean, I probably messed with it for 2 hours before I was finally able to get it out, and honestly, I don't even know how I did it, so going back in, I'm sure will be fun. Kind of just manhandled it and finally broke it free. I did loosen the alternator so I could get around this pulley. I removed this brake line here. Both of those things online said made it easier, which honestly, I don't know what would make it easier. It probably would have been less time just to drop the whole engine out to do this. But yeah, as you can see, it's definitely in need of being done. I can't believe, I honestly can't believe this hasn't jump timing already. With obviously you can remove this idler without any tension on the belt. And you can see all the rubber at the bottom of the housing. So I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum this out, clean it out with brake clean, make sure everything's really clean before I start taking stuff apart. I can't even see the timing melt mark on this sprocket. So I'm hoping once I get everything cleaned up, I'll be able to see that, because I really don't want to put that cover back on to use the other timing mark. So after second thought, I think the timing belt has been done on this before, because I can tell that this cover here has been off before, because there should be a mark right here for this lining up with this mark exactly on the sprocket. There should be an arrow that shows through these windows on the kind of crankshaft gear, which I can't find. I've rotated the engine and none of my windows have that arrow. So I went back to where I was before, and the camshaft is at top dead center. And I am like 99.9% sure the crankshaft's at top dead center, because I put the cover kind of in place more or less and the pulley back on, and it's lining up. So this tooth here is top dead center. It's just someone put this cover on before, not in the right place, so the window isn't showing. There should be an arrow right here on this tooth that I can't see, so I'm just gonna mark it with a paint pen. And like I said, I'm 99.9% sure. I did try getting this off real quick, but it was like even number 2 setting on my Milwaukee wouldn't bust this free. So I'd rather not mess with it if I don't have to. It's not leaking, and the camshaft is like just starting to weep, but it's not dripping down the block. I've had terrible luck in the past with those press-in seals, just making them worse than they already are. So I think for now, I'm just gonna leave it, but I'll go ahead and pull these, the tensioner and the idler, and yeah, start working my way to getting the belt off and getting the new belt on. This is a very strong Japanese man that worked on this before too. Holy shit, that hurt. Yeah, and I mean, with 80,000 kilometers and this being, oh God, I don't even know how many years old it is. This does say Honda on it. I don't know. I don't think this is the original one, actually. I think it might have been done once before. It was loose, but honestly, the belt doesn't look that bad. So I don't know if the tensioner just slipped. But anyways, I have a new belt, so. And now there's just this one 10 millimeter for the plastic cover that you need to get off to get the water pump out. And I'll get my bucket before I break the water pump loose. Helps when you remove the last bolt to get the water pump out. Alright, just get a Brillo pad, clean that up, and throw in the new water pump. The kit I got did come with a new tensioner, but or sorry, not a new tensioner. It came with a new thermostat, but again, it's kind of one of those things that if it's not broke, why replace it? Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned up the sealing surface the best I could. I mean, it doesn't look pretty, but I got all the residual gasket off of there. It's pretty flat. So I'll go ahead and put the new water pump in. And on with the new idler pulley, and this I'll probably just gonna put here, not tight at first because I might need to remove it in order to get the timing belt to go on. Alright, and then I'm gonna check the timing a bajillion times, but just give it a quick look to make sure nothing moved. And the new Mitsubishi timing belt. Start on the crank gear. To do this last. I'm actually going to try it first with the idler on. Alright. Crankshaft looks good. And looks like the cam gear didn't move at all. Still lined up perpendicular to cylinder head. And now for this, you want some tension, but not too much, which I know is lots of help. You can kind of look at the old one to see where it was. I mean, mine was pretty far over. It actually looks pretty spot on. I kind of like this. The belt will stretch over time, so if it's a little bit tight, it's not the end of the world. If it's too tight, you can damage the bearings, but I'm kind of happy with mine. And I will torque these to spec once I rotate the engine, but just trying to get stuff kind of where I want it. Alright, now I'm going to rotate the engine twice to make sure nothing binds up. Okay, that's once. I went too far, so I guess I'm doing 4 times. And with the pistons don't hit the valves, then you know you did something right. All right, so that's back on its timing mark. And the other two timing marks are spot on where they were. Sweet. That is a little bit looser than I would like, probably. So I am going to tighten that, I think, before I button everything up. I mean, it's obviously tighter than it was the way I found it, but I think we can do better. There we go. That's perfect, just so it won't move there. I like it. All right, I'm gonna look up the torque specs and then I'll come back and torque these two idlers. The water pump, obviously, I just did good and tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and torque my idler and tensioner, which the torque spec is 44 Newton meters. It's actually 4.5 kilograms per Newton, which times 9.8 is about 44. Apparently I over-tightened them already, but that's fine. It's not an exact science. And I'm pretty happy with the tension still. And this old motor mount bracket, I'm gonna go ahead and try and clean up before I put everything back together. And give it a fresh coat of paint. So I went ahead and hit this with some rust converter and painted with some POR 15 at the house where it was a little bit warmer and the paint would dry. So that's looking a little bit better than it was previously. Now I wasn't timing myself getting the cover off, but I think I was honestly at an hour and a half getting it off. So if you want to take your bets on how long it takes me to get the plastic cover back on, I'm curious myself. Cautiously optimistic that it'll go faster than taking it off, but I honestly have no idea how I got it out. So we'll see, but I'm going to take the alternator back off. I followed all the tips and tricks online. Remove the alternator, remove the oil dipstick tube, remove the brake line, and nothing seemed to really make it easier. So it was about 15 minutes going back on. I have no idea what I did again, other than just wiggle and manhandle it. Probably be a miracle if the rubber gasket is still in place where it needs to be. We'll try and look around and make sure, but well, that's the hardest part of the job. Everything else is pretty simple, just reverse of removal. So the main cover I was actually able to get on in about 15 minutes this time, but the timing, or the top cover, which was easy coming out, was a nightmare trying to get back in with the rubber gasket in place. I ended up just pulling the entire valve cover up top, which is probably what you're supposed to do, but I saw other people just loosen it. I guess that's fine. Now I'm gonna put the new gasket in the valve cover that came with the kit, clean up the sealing surface, clean up the inside of the valve cover. You could also, if you wanted to, I guess, now that this is open, do a valve adjustment. I don't know. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, even if the valve clearance is off slightly. It might affect your performance slightly, but for what I use the vehicle for, I don't care. Technically, I think you do need to know where the engine is, so you'd still have to have the timing cover off to put each cylinder at top dead center or at the specified position for doing the valve adjustment. You can probably still tell just based on the intake and exhaust valves where they are, but like I said, for this engine, I don't care. If it was something a little bit more high performance, I probably would go ahead and do it, but having excessive clearance I don't think is really hurting anything. So I'm just going to go around with the Brillo pad, get some brake clean. Probably shouldn't spray right over the open engine, and just make sure I get all the old gasket material off. Sealing surface, I did, when I was trying to get that cover on, was kind of handling the valve cover around, so I wouldn't be surprised if I got some sort of debris on the sealing surface. So I was gonna cause it to not seal up. Unfortunately, it looks like the bottom side of this is going to be pretty difficult to get to. I think I've got every tool I possibly own out working on this, because everything has to be the perfect size to be able to fit the Acty. Spark plugs actually don't look too old on this, other than the fact that it's completely covered in oil because the seal on this one's bad. And the torque spec for these are 15 newton meters. I always torque spark plugs because I tend to be a way over torque things. Oh, the lowest my torque wrench goes is 17th, so I guess that's what they're going to. So luckily enough, my kit did come with new spark plug seals. I can actually just feel these. They have like lost all malleability. They're just kind of like hard and very worn out, so that will definitely keep those tubes from filling up with oil like they were. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put the new gasket on. I've already cleaned the cylinder or the mating surface inside the truck. And we'll put the new, I cleaned out this groove too, not that it really matters too much. I did clean out the inside of the valve cover too. I obviously didn't do a perfect job, but I got some of the sludge that was on there out of there. Probably be one of the times where it's worth having a parts washer, but one tool I've neglected to acquire so far. Alright, cool. This comes with new grommets too for the bolts. Yeah, these ones are much happier than the ones that came out. I typically put a little bit of RTV just on the half moons here. This is from my time working on BMWs. I'm sure Honda doesn't call for it, and apparently I don't have any in my cabinet, which I thought I did. So I guess I am going to do it the Honda way and hope for the best. The old one didn't have it and wasn't leaking, but now it's time to go ahead and put the valve cover back on. Tried to make my life a little bit easier from when I took it off and I lowered the engine down. Even more because it was kind of a tight fit when this came off, and then also trying to remember which way everything went. Now I'm going to take all these spark plug tubes and spray contact cleaner in them since they're all full of oil. I think these actually did a pretty good job sealing. There wasn't too much oil actually in these, but I'll give them a minute to dry and put some dielectric grease and reinstall them. Alright, these are dry enough now. Usually I put dielectric grease on the spark plug, but the connector is actually pretty far in there, so I think it will be a waste just putting it in there. I did connect a bunch of stuff at various times, so I'm just going to look over, make sure everything, hey, see, I knew would have been something I forgot. There we go. For now, everything looks pretty good. So I guess the next step now is going to be putting the motor mount back in. The new motor mount bracket is in, so everything is, or or sorry, not new, the refurbished or painted motor mount bracket is back in. So everything is coming together. And now pretty much the last step is putting the new serpentine belt on and tightening down the radiator, or the alternator. So the first start after timing belt replacement is always a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Started right up. And I was expecting that with the all the oil that went in the cylinder. It doesn't have coolant in it right now, so I'm not gonna let it run too long, but perfect. So I'm going to work on replacing the second motor mount now that I'm done with the timing belt. And this looks pretty easy to get to. I have the engine jacked up again on the other side now. The actual bolts for this motor mount are accessed from the back side, and then I remove this connector here that goes to the starter and obviously I didn't want to risk breaking that. So I ended up having to take this whole bracket out, and the whole unit came down together. Yeah, definitely a lot more difficult than it looked like going into it. Also had to pull these bolts on the exhaust hanger. But yeah, I'm gonna just put the new mount in and shove everything back together as quickly as possible. And the two bolts on top of the mount, you can actually see through the bottom of this bracket, so you're not working completely blind. But it does take a while because you can't really move your ratchet very far. And there's probably a torque spec for all these motor mounts, but I've just been going good and tight. Now I just have to put 2 bolts back on for the heat shield for the exhaust, and that's it. That was a little bit more difficult than it looked. Like looking at it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. It's just 3 bolts. But a little bit more difficult, definitely manageable. And here's how this mount looked. Not nearly as bad as the other side, but still a little bit cracked, so it was worth doing. So now I'm gonna work on changing all the fluids, which will be a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable for me. So I'm gonna start with the front differential and just work my way back. I'm gonna change the fuel filter and air filter also. But yeah, just gonna start here at the front, work backwards. Conveniently enough, they're right on there what kind of oil you need. API GL4 or 5 SA90. And we have a 17 millimeter fill plug, and it looks like a 3/8 ratchet drain. Wow, the person that worked on this car last, just really tightened everything down more than it needed to be. All right, I'm not sure why you would tighten the diff drain bolt this much, but here we are. I'll just use this. Actually doesn't look half bad. Smells okay. Okay, looks like it has a magnetic drain plug too, and there's not much on there, so it was probably changed at some point. All right, so I'll go ahead and put the drain plug back in. And this takes a ½ liter of your 90 weight GL4, GL5. I have GL4, GL5 7590, which will be fine. And on with the drain plug. All right, next I'm gonna work on the fuel filter, which is right here. It just has a clip. All right, now it's out of its housing there. So I'm just gonna pinch off the line coming from the tank. Well, pinch off both lines so the stuff that is between here and the engine doesn't flow backwards. It is kind of above the tank, so it's probably not gonna siphon, but just to be sure. So here's what I'm working with the fuel filter. It's kind of hard to film with the other camera on the tripod. So I did end up having to pinch this line. Probably good to do this with if your tank level is low. Mine must be full right now because if I angle it down at all without this clamp on it, it starts siphoning fuel out. So I had to put the clamp on there. These clips are kind of a pain, but just start working them back, and then obviously they probably haven't been off anytime soon, so it took quite a bit of force to get the filter off. And then when you go to put the new filter on, there's an arrow for the direction of flow because it does have a check valve, or it's directional filter, so just make sure you look at the arrow. After I put the clips back on, they weren't super tight, so I just used some snap ring pliers to bend them out and basically tighten them down. And now this should just be able to clip back in where it was. Like so. Sweet. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and do the transaxle, which everything is pretty conveniently located. This doesn't smell bad, but it is pretty dark, so. And now the long, slow process of pumping in the manual gearbox oil. Interestingly enough, you can use engine oil for this. It's 10W30 or manual transmission fluid. I love Honda manual transmissions, so I'm just using their fluid. Not sure if I mentioned it yet, but I have been having issues with the 4th gear synchro. Basically not playing nice. I have to double clutch to go into 4th gear without it grinding. So I'm hoping the fresh fluid is gonna fix that. If not, I suspect that the clutch might need an adjustment because sometimes when it's cold, going into reverse also does the same thing. And I'm gonna be here for a really long time. I forget exactly how much this takes. I ordered 2 bottles, so something less than 2 bottles because I did look it up at one point. So it ended up being about 1.5 liters. Took 2 bottles. First one lost suction a little bit before the bottom, so I don't know exactly, but I would say 1.5 liters before it was definitely spilling out. And giving everything the good and tight on this one. All right, so the last fluid I have left is the engine oil. Which the importer I bought this from told me he changed the oil, but judging by the fact that the oil filter looks like it's been on there for about 5 years, I highly doubt that. And I've only put about 2,000 kilometers on it, probably less since I bought it, and that is definitely, I've honestly probably only put 500 kilometers on it since I bought it, and that is not 500 kilometer oil. I don't know what this sensor is right above the oil filter, but it's definitely actively leaking or has been leaking, so I'll have to look into that and see what it is. Honestly, I don't even know what it could be. I don't think this has an oil temperature gauge. Now I guess I understand why I've seen people selling funnels specifically for these cars. I got 1.25 liters in this bottle. I hate using this funnel because it's so slow, but I think it's my only option for this. Slow funnel 10W30 in the middle of, or not the middle of winter, but on a cold day. I'm gonna be here for a while. In the future, I'm gonna have to come up with something better. All right, so after the longest oil fill up ever, I'll start it up, run it for a little bit, or for 30 seconds, and then I'll check the oil level. I still don't have coolant in it, so I can't run it too long. This dipstick is really hard to read, but I kind of just did an imprint on the side, and it looks like it's right in the middle. Yeah, it's like perfectly in the half, so sweet. I don't want to mess with that. Next time I do an oil change, I'll definitely invest in purchasing the appropriate funnel. So I realized I forgot to do the air filter while I had it up in the air. The air filter is brand new, so that's going right back in there, and I'll save my other one for another day. And to access the coolant fill, there's just this one little cover with a wing nut on it, and then 5 screws that hold in the dash panel that goes right here. And another convenient funnel location. So to bleed the coolant, I have the front jacked up as high as my jack will go. And I'm just gonna crack the bleeders on the engine. Of course, I don't have a hose that will actually fit these, so it's gonna make a mess. I definitely heard air. All right, turn the engine over and all right, I'm gonna top off the coolant. So I've got coolant out of this one now. Just gonna want to flow it until it's got the air bubbles out of it. Probably recommend getting a hose that actually fits these, which I don't have. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna drive it and then I'll check it again. So here's the clutch adjustment mechanism. So I went ahead and loosened the 2 bolts, and basically what you're trying to do is put more tension on the cable. So you're trying to bring, I basically loosened the top one and I'm tightening the bottom one, which I can feel is raising the point at which the clutch engages. There is a spec in the manual for how much free play there should be in the clutch pedal, but I don't understand really what that means. I don't know, because it starts obviously moving that bellow right away, but I think it's to the point where you start to feel tension on it, which I think I'm already, the spec is actually pretty small, so I think I'm still out of spec, but it's way better than it was by tightening this bottom one. So I'm just going to kind of slowly mess with this over time. I kind of wish the manual was a little bit more descriptive, but it's biting way way higher than it was before. So I think I probably tighten this maybe, I don't know, I think 4 or 5 turns, because I think maybe that's where it was before. But I'm just going to tighten these both back up now. It's actually kind of a pain because there's not much room. It's 17 millimeter, but there's not much room to get in here. So I'm going to try this, see if it does any better. I'm hopeful that this is going to fix that 4th gear and reverse issue. So I think this is going to be a wrap on this episode. It definitely feels really good to complete a baseline service on my 1995 Honda Acty Attack. Like I said at the intro, I usually do this right away when I purchase a piece of equipment, so it was kind of stressing me out that I couldn't get to it, but it definitely feels good knowing that basically every serviceable item on it has been addressed and is fresh. Obviously, the importer, pretty sure, lied to me about changing the oil. Not that I cared anyways, because I was always going to do it myself. Trust but verify. So I did want to mention a few items that I noticed as I was kind of finalizing everything up. This is the only car I've ever worked on where the valve cover only had 4 bolts on it, and there's no specified torque sequence in the owner or in the workshop manual that I have. So I did actually have a leak that was leaking from the bottom of the valve cover down onto the exhaust. So I had to loosen the valve cover. I didn't have to completely pull it off. And then basically the solution I found was just to inspect all the way around the valve cover and just tighten the bolts down in tiny increments to try and get it as even as possible. You can actually see the underside of the valve cover, which I thought there was no way to see it from underside or from underneath the truck. So I did actually find that I basically wanted the bottom side to be seated better, because that's obviously where the oil is going to be pooling, because it's sloped downward. So I seated the bottom side and then seated the top. I did try and bring it down evenly, but basically focusing on the bottom side and then just going underneath the vehicle and inspecting the valve cover seal and making sure that I had a good tight fit. So I was able to fix that leak. I will say the new motor mounts, this is the first vehicle that I've ever worked on where new motor mounts actually made it more harsh in the cabin, like they're stiffer and there's more vibration. I checked everything over, I can't find anything I did wrong, so I guess that's just the nature of brand new mounts versus the older worn out ones. But yeah, overall it was it's not the easiest vehicle to work on. It's pretty actually tight in that rear engine compartment, so basically I think I had like every extension and ratchet I had out just to get the perfect length for everything, but I mean, it's definitely doable. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and stay tuned for next time. I'm not sure what I'm going to be working on next. I have a few more projects that I've yet to introduce to the channel. Also, I think long term I would like to maybe level the front of this and put some all-terrain tires on it, but that's just going to be when I find a good set of wheels on Facebook Marketplace. I want 13-inch Honda Steelies, which are a little bit challenging to find. So yeah, hope you guys like this, and stay tuned for next time. Bye.